Another draft physics presentation. Quite stormy out. So, anyway, felt like making a video before the light goes out and the power becomes less than fun in here. Anyway, so the Delta Nor guy just won't let it go. And, go ahead, embarrass yourself. That's all. Fuck it. But yeah, you point it out. You point out what's missing, and they just don't care. So, did you notice that the upper vertical light took slightly longer time to get to the target than the vertical light on the bottom? No, because it didn't happen. And so, look at the illustration yourself. See where the light starts. Okay, it starts like a ½ inch. See where the bottom one, the little dot is? So, that's where it starts. And look where it stops. And then measure the distance of the top one from the edge of the paper to the dot, minus that ½ inch. And then to the top where it goes, and it's exactly the same distance. So it's exactly the same distance as in the bottom in the finished product, in the sense that the time it took to go up and down is exactly the same as the distance this way, which means they didn't account for the path length difference at all. The two dots, the top dot going up and down and the bottom dot going up and down, are moving exactly the same speed. There's no difference if you measure the distances. Exactly the same distance, same amount of time to come back. Exactly. No difference at all. It looks a little tiny bit different because they made it move, but it's exactly the same. The distances prove it. Oh, there goes the lights. Shit. Probably won't get through this video. So I probably shouldn't have made it. Not a great idea. But anyway. So just I don't know what your motivations are here. I mean, you're just belligerently going to keep defending your God, and you won't concede that, okay, maybe you don't really understand how they did that animation. You didn't make it, right? Obviously, because if you made it, you'd explain to me exactly how you changed the speed to compensate for the longer distance. They obviously didn't change the speed to compensate for the longer distance. Obviously. And the paradox is, let's understand the paradox here. It can't even happen. That upper description can't even happen because of the speed problem, because of the length problem. The photon can't hit the mirror in that location. It can only hit the mirror up where the other target is. That's where it'll eventually hit the mirror. It can't even hit the mirror at that location. It's not possible. You couldn't even physically do this experiment because you would miss the mirror. You'd have to make a mirror that went across the whole surface so you could reflect, and it would never reflect back to the other mirror. It's not possible for you to have an actual photon go these distances and hit the mirror and get back to the other mirror. It's not possible. It can't physically happen. And yet he's going to show an animation saying this is reality. And then he'll question the fact that I'm pointing out how this isn't very good physics. This, in fact, is horrible physics. If Newton made errors like this, everybody would be saying what an asshole Newton was. I mean, he really fucked physics. He really cheated all over the place. Newton didn't cheat like this. You people are just cheaters. And fanatic cheaters. Because you won't, when I've demonstrated and shown you the cheat, you just insist, no, it's not a cheat, it's not a cheat. It's a cheat. It's not the truth. And that now he states, look, that means. So his completely fake premise that there's a slightly longer distance, no, there's no longer distance. There's no longer amount of time at all. If you measure the distances, they're exactly the same. So yes, they might have drawn the top animation a tiny, tiny bit slower, but if you look at the actual distance traveled, it's exactly the same. So it can't possibly be that the photon moved slower. It's just the animation moved a little bit slower. Because the end product is the same distance, fuckhead. The same distances. Take out your protractor and measure it, shithead. Frame by frame, shithead. Measure the distance going up and measure the distance from where it left. And you'll find out they're exactly the same distance, asshole. Oh, what a man. I mean, fuck. That means its y velocity is smaller than the speed of light c. Well, it isn't. Your premise is wrong, and your assumption that that tiny bit of difference would account for the 5 point, the difference between 5 and 3/8 and 4. Guess what? That's a pretty big difference, fuckhead. That's almost 20% difference. Alright, and before you shove another red herring in, so I'm the red herring guy when this guy's now, okay, so he's talking before about when you start to call somebody a liar. Alright? Well, there's a point where this is just a fucking lie. Alright? First, there's false premise that it's slightly longer. When it's what? 0.0001% longer? When it has to be 20% longer to be accurate. 20% longer. Jesus. Shove another red herring in. I mean, the representation of it. So again, he's still defending something that's overtly exactly as I described, which is they didn't pay any attention to the motion on the upward length. They didn't care. They just said, no, that's just the speed of light, and we can make it go to both directions. We can make it go this way, and that's what light does. It moves two directions at the same time. A complete cheat. That means it's not just two velocities add up, they're compensating so that it still moves at a constant speed diagonally. A constant speed that's the speed of light. Again, you haven't slowed it down. If you're going to represent it, you have to represent the fact that it's moving 10 and 3/4 segments. Alright, total. 10 and 3/4 segments total. You only got 4. Well, 8 if you count the both directions. You've accounted for 8, and you have to have 10 and 3/4. And you say, oh, yeah, that's fair. No, it's 20% off. Not a small margin of error. Okay, you accuse the upper light of going too fast. I don't accuse it of going too fast in the sense that it's going just right for you. I'm saying, obviously, you can't draw it as the longer distance unless you draw a different kind of animation, but you can't draw it as the longer distance anyway because it's paradoxical. Don't you understand? It can't hit the mirror. I showed it in the picture. The line comes up short. Do I have to do this again? This, okay? You need to have this height. This can't get to that height. It can't do it. See? It doesn't hit the mirror. It doesn't have enough time to hit the mirror. Shit. So yeah, of course you have to slow it down if you're going to try to simulate it. The only way you can simulate that difference is you have to make the light beam go slower to show, hey, it didn't make it to the mirror. Duh. Alright. Because it supposedly had the velocities added up. No, it supposedly ignored the fact that you gave it this way for free. You didn't account for the fact that it has to go this way. You just accounted for up and down. You didn't account for going for this way. And this way means you have to go at the angle. And if you go at the angle, that means you're going to come up short, shithead. You did that, and you did that with false confidence. I'm still just as confident. I don't have the camera on, so I can't re-show the diagram, but I did draw it a little better because I did draw it a little shitty. So let me put the see this thing so I can see how well you can see this. Oh, I have the wrong thing open. There. So that's the better drawing. All right, and so you have to go this total of 5 and 3. This longer hypotenuse. That's where the beam actually stops, is right there, short. See this beam here? It comes up backwards, so it's really hard to. Yeah, this hand's a little. Yeah, it's really funny because it's you can't figure out which way you're supposed to go. It's short. See, short. It doesn't go far enough. And if you can fake it and make it work, okay, and make it hit this side, but you have to do something to do that because it's not going to do it by the math. You have to rig it in some way to make it happen because it can't physically happen in the actual universe. The thing you're supposed to give a shit about, the truth doesn't let it happen. But yeah, keep telling me that you're the honorable guy here. Fucking cruddy piece of shit. Alright. You did know that, and you did it with false confidence. So again, he says it again. You accuse the upper light of going too fast. And I still accuse it of going exactly the same speed it would go in the bottom one, where there's no motion. It's going exactly the same amount of speed. It's doing exactly the same thing. It's getting from the up position to the down position in exactly the same amount of time, even though it's going this way too. And it can't do that physically. Fact. You piece of shit. Alright, did you know that the pattern was created by fucking dust? Question mark. No, you fucking didn't. I asked you the question. Actually, someone else had to point it out to you. So you're saying you did. And you're saying that Hofladay did. And you're saying that the cowboy did. You're saying everybody knew the pattern could be created by dust particles. That you didn't even need to have any kind of film, and you didn't have to put anything in between the splitter, and you didn't have to do any of this complicated stuff. You just had to blow your breath on a piece of glass, and you have an interferometer. You're saying everybody knew that. What a piece of shit you are. That's massively ironic how someone else pointed it out and you accused others of not being curious enough. Yeah, he pointed me to actually a web page that he said, I found it accidentally. It's from 1980, okay? The page is archived because all the links on it are broken. So yeah, that's how obscure the conversation is, asshole. And you're somehow making a point here somehow? I didn't say I discovered it. Did I say I discovered that dust makes it happen? No. I discovered the pattern, and somebody pointed out to me why it happens. Because I said in the video, why the fuck's this happening? And he was saying exactly the same question, and he found it on the internet. That's what actually happened, jackass. Because none of you people have ever had any curiosity. You don't give a shit what the truth is. Alright, and the truth is something completely different than what you're propagandizing and selling as a big fat juicy pile of shit. A big pile of bullshit is your physics. I can't conceive of anyone else having this little self-awareness. So again, how was I self-aware? All in public, I read the guy's comment. I was curious, he was curious. What's causing the pattern? Right? And he found the explanation. So what exactly in here do I need any self-awareness about? Man, you are such a piece of shit. A Michelson interferometer doesn't show the pattern unless the two beams are carefully aligned. So I just already pointed out how, no, you can get the pattern by doing all kinds of fucked up shit. Okay, you don't even have to come close to having any two beams or any kind of alignment. You can actually just reflect light off a dirty mirror, then off another mirror, and project it at a different angle on the wall. So you don't even have to have anything reflect back through anything. You can just do two trips through a mirror, two mirror trips, and you'll get the pattern. Asshole. That's not what happens in your dumb piece of glass. So again, it's the same pattern is the point, jackass. So whatever you think is mysterious about this interference pattern, it's creating the same interference pattern. Now, that doesn't strike you as a curious fact, then you're really dim. Okay, your glass mirror shows it right at the onset. Your glass/mirror, it's a glass, it's not a mirror, shows it right at the onset. So by that point alone, we know that these things aren't entirely equivalent. How do you know? If the whole point is that this is an optical effect being created by internal reflections, as I pointed out, the dust particles have to be right next to a reflective surface, that is either glass or a mirror, something, any surface, a surface transition. And the point is the dust particles spread the light, and then the internal reflections create the pattern. Now you're not curious enough to say, oh yeah, well I'd like to analyze that. You instead say, no, that can't be what's happening. Wavitons are the radar is interfering with itself. But you don't have a diagram of where that's taking place. You don't have any explanation of how it's taking place. I'm going to lose the light. Of course, this is something that, well, I might be still able to post this video even if the computer crashes because it's an FLV. I think, but who knows. Of course, this is something that would have to be pointed out when you're dealing with a crank. So again, what has to be pointed out? I haven't said that the two patterns aren't, you can't complicate the pattern or you can't make the pattern more sophisticated. In fact, I said maybe that's possible. All I'm pointing out is that if you're going to claim it's an interference pattern, then you have to explain where the interference is happening, and why, of course, I would say you also have to explain why the pattern is always the same. Curious fact. Alright, the layer of dust causes some sort of deflection, diffraction, some sort of. No, I think we know what kind it creates. The same kind of surface diffraction that takes place in the single slit and in the double slit. Exactly the same phenomenon. Photons have to go close to the surface of the dust, and then they get bent because they go close to the surface. So the two surface experiment and the four surface experiment are what the two slit and the single slit ought to be called, because it's actually the surfaces that are causing the phenomenon. And you're all too fucking dim to connect these obvious dots. Obvious dots. And the reflective surface creates two effective sources of light to interfere. So again, interfere how? How does the reflective surface create two sources of light to interfere? How? Draw me a picture of that happening somewhere. The dust particle creates two wavitons, so we'll say, okay, there's two wavitons somehow, and they interfere with each other, but we already know that the wave function collapses when they hit a surface, so the photon will be back to being just one photon again. I think you're in trouble. If your beam splitter is actually clean, it alone is not going to show the pattern. Well, I've already pointed that out, asshole, so that's not news to anybody. And the whole point is that all the beam splitters, the things you call beam splitters, the cubes, the rest of them, the very point is they put the dirty surface on the inside, okay, and then glue. That's what the glue is for. They use a special glue. They take two of these and they glue them together, and the glue is the dirty surface, dimwit. Stupid fuck. And obviously if you put a diffraction gradient between two pieces of glass, as I did, that's essentially the same thing as putting the dirty surface in between the layers of glass. Asshole. Alright. If the beam splitter is actually clean, it alone is not going to show the pattern. Well, if it's one of your beam splitters, it will, because that has dirt in the middle. Nor is the light going to get diverged. That's a fucking fact. And where did I say anything contrary to that? I sat there in the video cleaning the glass slide, pointing out how if you clean it, the pattern goes away. I mean, you're so preposterous. You think you're making a point by making my point, by quoting it almost exactly what I said. Shit. The interference in the MM setup occurs right when the two beams are recombined. So we're okay. So right when they're recombined, well, where are they recombined? They're recombined inside the glass. I hope you understand that, right? The two beams come back, and one of them is going to hit the mirrored surface, the reflective surface, the half mirrored glass, okay, and one of them's coming straight through the glass. So in a sense they sort of interact, in the sense that obviously some of the light's going to hit the back of the mirrored surface, and so some of it's going to vibrate those little mirrors a little maybe, but you're still thinking it happens in the atmosphere after they both come out of the glass. One reflects and one goes through, and you're saying the two of them combined there. Well, I'm just saying that I've put huge doubt on that by just pointing out that you can create the pattern, okay, without the other leg. So what's being recombined? What's the recombination? Okay, the interference in there, right? So I don't know why you're asking about something you can answer yourself easily. I don't know why I'm supposed to answer your religious dogmatic paradoxes. You create a paradox, a claim that you can't defend, in the sense that I demonstrate with an experiment that I don't need the other beam to recombine to create the pattern. And you say, I don't know why you're asking about something you can answer easily yourself easily. So the answer is you're just all full of shit, right? That's the only possible answer, because you're not provided an explanation. Okay, now that you've got some kind of byproduct, it's going to keep fueling your delusions. And you're going to keep pulling up this red herring. So again, he's calling it a red herring. So he shows a completely broken fake simulation that doesn't account for the fact that this height is not the same as this height. See? Shorter. Okay? His fake animation can't figure that simple truth out. You know, and he's going to preach about who's living in fueling delusions. And you're going to keep pulling up this red herring just to further confuse the conversation. No, further provide evidence that your theory, that your Michelson interferometer could measure ether drag, is completely broken, because it's based on a wrong assumption that the two paths are going to travel a different distance. And as I've demonstrated, your math is crap, okay? And if you actually physically draw the model of this thing, okay, you find out that no, the two distances will be the same, because your light has to travel a straight line. It can't do this magical I'm going two ways at once thing. Can't do that. It can only go one way at a time. So you have to actually make it go the longer distance. And if it goes the longer distance, guess what? It turns out to be exactly the same distance, exactly the 10 3/4 segments that the other experiment takes. The moving and the moving leg and the non-moving leg have exactly the same time and distance. So you have a whole fake premise that your fucking machine can do something, and that it proved something. And you know, not that I have no interest in proving the existence of ether, because I don't think it exists, but you think it has something to do with proving there's no absolute frame. Well, I think your proof is a piece of shit, and I think I've proven that your proof is shit. It's a lot less than what proof should look like at the minimum. But you people, again, will not even admit that, oh yeah, well, I guess you have put a few dents in our silly proof, and that we probably should come up with a little bit better. You know, you won't even admit that. You won't even admit that your silly proof, okay, which wasn't a proof, it was just a bunch of you say-sos, okay, and you just keep doing it. You keep insisting that this doesn't really happen, that this isn't a real fact, that this is not as high as this. It's not a fact, right? Fucking cunt. Alright, last one. And the single slit pattern is not just on-off bars. Well, it is. A tiny bit of haze on the edges, but essentially it's on-off bars. A little bit of haze. If you look at the one done with electrons, so be clear, and the single slit pattern with photons is not just on-off bars. With electrons, you get the wave pattern, because electrons don't hit each other. They bounce off each other's fields, of course. Not the fields don't interact with each other, but one electron's field affects the other electron. So like magnets, they deflect off each other. That's why the electron pattern is nice and wavy and gradual. And the reason why the photon pattern isn't is because the photons are hitting the fucking electrons, and photons aren't bent by electrons. They don't bend around electrons. There's no field interactions. They give electrons momentum. When they give the electron the momentum, it changes the direction of the photon. Alright, I have a laser and a filter to block some light. At the edge would work also for blocking. And I can create light in my room that is completely invisible when you turn the lights on. So again, he's so obsessed with defending his little cracker Jesus theory. I don't know why I said cracker, but whatever. That was totally, what the hell was that? That you know, he's going to sit there and pretend that all the thousands of images of double slit experiments are misleading and incorrect. Even Young's himself, his experiment, because he didn't have proper filters. I mean, this is just so fucking idiotic. I mean, this level of denial, you know, that there is something fundamentally wrong with the pattern. I mean, you just won't admit a truth that's just so fucking obvious. I've done it, like you just said here. I've done enough of the slit experiments, and I've looked at them really close, and it's just absolute bullshit to say it's some beautiful, wavy gradation, because it's not. It's already been pointed out that the look of the on-off pattern is only an approximation of the actual light. So what's the point, right? This is how fanatic these people are. They're this fucking nuts to say that somehow we're not seeing it. With our really good vision, we're not really seeing the real pattern. That it really is a nice smooth gradation. And somehow we can see it when it's electrons. Okay, electrons somehow they work better on photographic paper than the two-slit experiment does. That's his theory. That somehow photons get confused. Okay. You've been shown this. I haven't been shown shit. So that's just a lie. He's posted a link to some silly experimental page where they tell you how to do an experiment and they don't actually do it. Has no photographs of the results, has nothing. Absolutely no evidence of this whatsoever. Silly graphs that can't even be deciphered. They're so fucking preposterous, where he has 3 different experiments on the same fucking graph. Complete crap as evidence. Why don't you just show me an image done with a CCD camera or something? Show it. Show it. You've been shown that you're such a fucking piece of shit, and you simply dismiss it. Yeah, I dismissed it for not simply reasons, for reasons that it's not evidence of anything. It's an absolute piece of shit as evidence. It demonstrates absolutely nothing. A silly chart with 4 little points on it. Where did it demonstrate a perfectly gradual pattern? Didn't do it anywhere. I mean, man, you're just such a piece of shit for this crap. I mean, it's like Piro insisting that his broken wave fucking cheat experiment was somehow the real thing. Saying that you're not really interested in measuring the light or looking into it further. It's not that I'm not interested. I'm not going to buy a bunch of very expensive equipment. I mean, technically to do it right, you're going to have to use a photo multiplier or something very sensitive, and you're going to have to do the experiment very carefully. You know, if what you're claiming is some sort of, and like I said, why would I do an experiment that I think has absolutely no theoretical rationality that it's based on? There's absolutely no reason for us not to be able to see the actual pattern. We watch movies on a screen and we can see the boogers in people's fucking noses. The detail is so fine. And you're saying that somehow we can't see the two-slit experiment. It's just a preposterous theory on its foundations. It's nonsense. It's like me doing the experiment to prove there's no UFOs or something. It's a waste of my fucking time. Alright, that's so ironic because you, in this very video, accuse others of not being curious enough. Well, again, I'm supposed to be curious about something where I have absolutely no evidence that you're right. I mean, there's absolutely no indication that the pattern is fooling us. There's no evidence that we're fooled. There's no evidence that the two-slit experiment creates a special photographic phenomenon where we can't see reality anymore. Okay, that it's some sort of, you know, it turns everything into a Van Gogh painting all of a sudden when it's a slit experiment. Every other thing, we can see shadow lines, we can see huge details, we can see with microscopes, we can see huge details. All of a sudden, though, with a two-slit experiment, all of a sudden, all the truth disappears. I mean, do you see how insane? You can't see how insane your theory is, and then you're telling me I should waste my valuable time proving you have an insane theory. You're just such a piece of shit. I've already proved that your fake GIF file is a fake. It's a piece of crap. It doesn't accurately describe the actual event the way it would actually take place. You're the person selling frauds, shithead. Why should I waste my time proving you again to be a fraud? Yet when there's some confusing data set against you. There's no confusing data set against my position. My position is the one with tons of evidence. Yours is the position with no fucking evidence. Or when a massive list of experiments is presented. Where? Where's the massive list of experiments demonstrating that the light actually is a beautiful gradation with photons? Where's your evidence? You don't bother to, you even want to bother. So there, it's such a lie. So now you're a fucking liar. Alright, when a massive list of experiments is presented, where is the massive list? You demonstrated one fucking obscure, idiotic page that describes a whole little two-slit setup and how to set it up. It's like for a high school lab, and you're saying that proves that the light's gradient. Doesn't even come damn near close. And to sit there and call me, it's goddamn fucking hypocrite. Call me the hypocrite when you're sitting there and just keep defending things I've already drawn the pictures, I've shown diagrams, I've explained why you're fucking wrong, alright, and I've done it decisively. You're done and you're cooked. You keep up this behavior, then you'll just be blocked instead of just deleted. But fuck you, cunt. You've provided no evidence. Again, let me have some quotes. Why don't you direct me to a website that explains the dust thing? Why don't you do that? Direct me to a website that explains the dust thing. And then why don't you direct me to a website that shows the Michelson interferometer with the arm that's moving perpendicular to the movement, and show me where they demonstrate that the light actually can't hit the mirror and bounce back because it comes up short. Why don't you show me, alright, where they actually admit the truth, which is, no, of course, the light will never hit this mirror in this position. It can't do it. At the speed of light, it can't get there. It can never hit the mirror in this position. It can only hit the mirror up here. And yes, if it hits the mirror up here, it's not going to come back into the interferometer. So at half the speed of light, the Michelson interferometer doesn't work. Period. It's cooked. It can't work as a physical experiment. It's not possible if you believe in the consistency of the speed of light. So yeah, fuck you. Jeez. Stupid cunt. So anyway, this guy says, this bloke has never seen a Faro sale. Well, obviously I've seen them in videos. I'm not stupid enough to buy one. I could probably make one. But that's also clearly just optics. It's just light reflecting, and that's why you can change what it looks like by tilting the glass again, because you're changing the internal reflections. The ferro fluid is just acting like dirt on a piece of glass. God damn you people. Alright, yeah, that's enough for a video. Sorry for the yelling. It probably comes out crappy. I gotta fix the microphone. But I'm just so, these people are just so obstinate in defense of weak. They have this terribly weak evidence, and they just keep trying to resurrect it. It's really trying to give up the power. So there we go. Till next time, such.